when I realized what my weapons were capable of in the wrong hands, I shut it down, stopped manufacturing.
Tony, you chose to do that. If we sign this, we surrender our right to choose. What if there's somewhere we need to go and they don't let us? We may not be perfect, but the safest hands are still our own.
If we don't.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for another comic book review. Today I'm reviewing Iron Man #1 from Christopher Cantwell with art by Cafu. And, bottom line up front, this is a pretty good start. I like what he's doing with the character. I don't always like exactly how he executes it in this comic. But overall, this is a recommend. I enjoy the new Iron Man. It's a big departure from what Dan Slott did in the previous series. Obviously, what he did in Iron Man 2020, just in a horrendous event. So Iron Man needed a fresh coat of paint, and that's definitely what this comic book represents. Now, before I get into all the details, I do want to say, if you've been visiting the channel, or if this is your first time and you haven't subscribed to Thinking Critical YouTube, now is the time. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, give this video a thumbs up if you want more comic book reviews on the channel. Give it a thumbs down and tell me to hit the bricks if you don't. Either way, I would definitely love to hear your feedback on Iron Man #1 in the comments section. Tell me what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? I'm sure maybe we'll have a little bit of both. I imagine that's kind of what happens most of the time. Now, getting into to the good stuff about this comic book, I'm going to start with the art from Cafu. I am a Cafu mark. I enjoyed his art back in the day in Valiant. I was a huge Valiant fan. I used to read all the Valiant comics, saw a lot of Cafu's art there. He does a great job. This comic looks different than what we're used to seeing with Tony Stark. Iron Man, specifically what we just finished up, they're taking him more kind of street level, and that's kind of what the art represents to me. It's a little bit, it looks more grounded in realism, things like this. It's not as cartoony as the last comic book. I like that. He's awesome with action scenes. There's a couple of great ones. There's one fun one that starts the comic. There's this one that's right in the middle. It's a nice car race, action-packed. I think it's probably the standout sequence of the comic book. There's even another action scene at the end that I think is done really well. So this is a pretty action-packed comic book for packing in a lot of exposition of where Christopher Cantwell wants to take the story. I think Cafu really knocks it out of the park and does a great job with what he's given. Even when they're standing around having dialogue, the characters aren't static. They're always dynamic. He does a great job with his panel layouts. It's not boring to read. When you see the same layouts over and over and over, it can become very repetitive. He does a great job mixing it up. As you can see here, it looks great. I do have one complaint, and it's not really about Cafu and his art. It's about one of the narrative devices that Christopher Cantwell's using that Cafu's having to kind of incorporate, and it's his use of social media. And Tony Stark is on his phone throughout the comic book. And I get what he's doing. He's using this to reiterate the fact that Tony is down in the dumps. People have kind of lost faith in him. Every time he tries to kind of put a message out there that he did something good, people are just crapping on him over and over. It's used a lot. I just think it's boring. It's so boring to use in a comic book. It never comes off well. I've never seen an artist really use this, execute it, and make it exciting. It's always boring. There has to be a better way to reiterate these facts. Maybe just a TV playing in the background with another news anchor dumping on Tony Stark in the back. That can reiterate this. I think trying to incorporate, social media apps on phones that we use every day, I get it. I get why they do it. Everyone's used to saying it, but it's very boring. And it just doesn't work. And Cafu can't even make this look good. But other than that, the art is fantastic. Like I said, I understand why Cantwell's doing it. I just don't think it ever works. It never works. Please, if you're writing a comic book, don't incorporate this. It never looks cool. That's just my opinion. If you enjoyed it, obviously, we disagree. This is one of those things. I might be binary on this. I just talked about in the last video how I don't live in a binary world. I might be binary on the use of social media apps and comic books. They're just bad. I don't see how they can be good, but maybe somebody will prove me wrong one day. Now, getting into the story, basically what this is Tony Stark is having a midlife crisis. Christopher Cantwell's wrapping up the stuff that Tony was doing in the previous series. He does it pretty well for the most part. There's one that I think was really awkward, and I am going to talk about it. But it's Tony kind of questioning, who am I? He's going through his midlife crisis. He's divested his stock or his position in Stark Enterprise or Industries. He's checked out, to the tune of $65 billion. And even that, he reinvests a third of it back into the stock market, and he points that out to the lady that's interviewing him. And she's like, well, you screwed up the NASDAQ stock market. So even when he tries to do something good, everything kind of goes bad and people are dumping on him. But he's talking about, machines shouldn't be building machines. I want to remember what it's like to be human and get back to my roots. But I mean, what are Tony Stark's roots? Is it just the Iron Man suit? Isn't Tony Stark being the CEO of Stark Industries a part of the character? Isn't that his roots? The billionaire playboy, the billionaire philanthropist, the billionaire technology genius, the billionaire scientist. Aren't those all the roots of who Tony Stark are? So I think it's interesting what Christopher Cantwell's doing. And we certainly don't get the answers to who Tony Stark really is. He's kind of questioning himself throughout this comic book. But I'm willing to go along for the ride because I do think he executes it for the most part pretty well. Like I said, he starts changing things up. He takes his nice posh roadster vehicle. He wrecks it. He goes in there. He gets him a nice muscle car, a nice Dodge Aspen 1978 Detroit muscle. Kind of a change of character. People don't recognize him. Obviously, from the initial sequence that I shown you, he takes it out. He's street racing and gets owned by a deaf guy. That was kind of strange, but whatever. He gets owned. I guess he wants that adrenaline rush, what it's like to be just a regular guy on the streets once again. Now, this middle panel is the weird part. He had a relationship with Janet Van Dyne, and she just flies up to him and says, we're over. This isn't working for me, and I think it's best to move on. And he's like, I agree. Thank you. And she leaves, and that's how he closes the door on that relationship. I felt pretty awkward. Don't know that he executed that one the best, but obviously he didn't want to spend a lot of time on that. So I guess, pull the Band-Aid off fast, but that one wasn't done with much finesse. And then at the end, he also does like a prank. He throws this big party, and everyone's like, I thought you were giving up the billionaire lifestyle. And, he invites all these CEOs. And once he flies out for like a rendezvous with, I think her name's Hellcat. Looks like dollar store Batwoman to me. But once he leaves the party, he detonates an EMP device and destroys all their phones. So he's doing pranks now on his old billionaire buddies. So obviously Tony is going through a midlife crisis. I think Cantwell does a good job showing that. There is some tell, but there's a lot of showing here too. Just showing that Tony, he's having a crisis of conscience. Who am I? And he's kind of trying to change who he is. He goes to that party, and that's one of the interesting things that happens. He's being... Everyone's propositioning him. Hey, I got a spot for you this. I want you to do this for me. I want you to do that for me. They don't think he's ready to give up his life as like the tech mogul. And I guess this is his way of saying, yes, I am, when he EMPs all their devices and ruins their phones. Seemed like a rude thing to do, but I guess when you're in the middle of a midlife crisis, you do crazy stuff. Now, there are a few things in here. Now, obviously, Iron Man is traditionally like a science-based comic book hero, and there are a lot of science-based things happening in here, and it's kind of weird. A lot of people probably won't notice this, but at the beginning, he's having a fight, and he's taking this guy, and he's flying him off planet, and he throws him through a satellite, and we later learn that it interrupted, the people's satellite TV. And I'm looking at this satellite. That is not a communication satellite. As somebody who was a satellite systems operator in the United States Air Force, also worked with a lot of satellite intelligence. I was an intelligence person. That is an imagery satellite. That is clearly a giant imagery device on the front of that satellite. There are no antennas. There are no communication arrays that would be sending signals down to Earth for TV signals. So that satellite is absolutely wrong. That is an imagery satellite. So they should, this is a science-based character. You should probably get the satellites correct. And then there's another part where he's talking to this guy and he's talking about lightning capture. And what does he say? Because it sounded like complete BS to me, and I had to look it up. He says, I can capture a lightning strike, the energy equivalent of an atomic blast. I said, I don't know, man. I was in a house once and we got struck by lightning. And our house still stood. It did not blow up like it was in a nuclear blast. So I went and looked it up, and it turns out within a lightning strike, there are on average 10 billion joules of energy. Now that is a lot of joules. That's like 10 to the 8th power. But in a 1 kiloton nuclear device, there are 4.18 times 10 to the 15th power joules of energy. So like almost double the amount of energy. It is a lot more within a nuclear blast. And it's also different types of energy. So I don't even know why he would compare the two. Certainly to Tony Stark. I think Tony Stark would have sniffed that out. Maybe I'm dense in my 4 minutes of cursory searches were completely wrong and this character is correct. But I think I'm right. I think he's full of crap, and I think Cantwell probably should have researched that one a little bit better, because it seemed like BS. And when I just did a little bit of research, it pretty much confirmed what I thought. That was weird. You should probably get stuff like that right in the Tony Stark Iron Man comic. The last part that's weird is he's out there. He's on this rendezvous with this character. I think her name's Hellcat. I might have gotten it wrong, but she's dollar store Catwoman in my eyes. And he's talking to her, and he keeps saying, I need to find who the man behind the man is. And she's like, hearing a lot of man talk. Sorry, person. It's not a funny joke. It's lame. It interrupts the story. I even saw people online saying they immediately closed the book and they aren't going to read Iron Man anymore. Now, I think that is a bridge too far. It's not that bad, but it's absolutely stupid. It had no place in this comic book. It felt out of place. It wasn't funny, and it was dumb. I don't know. Christopher Cantwell might not be a funny guy. These kind of jokes are just, they're going to ruin your series and drive people off, even though you probably think you're being funny. But at the end, we do get to revisit the Lightning character as Tony is beating this guy down. He's trying to get this old text. I think it's some type of Bible back, and he gets struck by lightning, and it messes up his armor. And who would you know it? It's very reminiscent of, is it Aldrich Killian from Iron Man 3, where he approaches Tony at a big New Year's party, and he wants to tell him about his big idea, and Tony blows him off so he can go hang out with some chick. But instead of waiting like 20 years to come back and bring extremists, online and try and kill Tony, this dude decides to kill him, I don't know, 45 minutes later. So very similar to that, but there you go. That's the big villain. This is the big hook that's going to keep you coming back, folks. He's fighting the lightning thief. Wait, I think that might have been from Harry Potter. Was that Harry Potter? Maybe that was Percy Jackson. I don't know. It's one of those YA novels that I didn't really enjoy. So there you go. Tony Stark versus the Lightning Thief. That's what we got coming up. This is Tony Stark's Midlife Crisis, Iron Man #1, Christopher Cantwell and Cafu. For the most part, this is a good comic. I think it's effective. Not the greatest comic I've ever read. Certainly not the greatest debut issue I've ever read. But it is solid. I think he gets his point across pretty well. The art kicks ass. There are a couple of things, research your science a little bit better. Don't throw in stupid man jokes that just ruin the entire flow of your comic book and make people want to throw the comic away because it's stupid. And, just concentrate on the character. Get back to the basics. Is a street level Iron Man even going to be cool? If you take away the tech billionaire scientist aspects of the character and is just a man in his suit. Is Iron Man even a character worth reading? I don't know. I'm going to find out. I'm definitely going to check out the next 2 or 3 issues at least. Give Christopher Cantwell's Iron Man a chance. I've never really read an Iron Man run that I liked a lot, so I'm hoping this will be the first. Not the greatest start. I'm not going, whoa, this is amazing, but it's certainly passable. He has to do a lot to undo what Dan Slott had done to the character, and quite frankly, what a lot of creators have done with the character for the past, 10, 15 years, where they've kind of ruined him. And I just want to say this. I am so happy Tony Stark is going through a midlife crisis, and he isn't just an alcoholic again. And I hope he doesn't revisit that. I think we've seen Tony Stark alcoholic enough. I'm glad he resisted the urge. I'm surprised Marvel didn't make him do it, and they're letting him do his own thing. I think it's got promise. The art's really cool, and we'll see where it goes. Like I said, I do recommend this comic book. It's not a highly recommend by any means. This is a very middle-of-the-road recommend. I think it's a solid start to the new Iron Man comic. Is it going to be great? We shall see. But hopefully you come along with the ride with me. I think this is definitely worth checking out. Christopher Cantwell's done some really good things on Doctor Doom, and Cafu's done some great things over at Valiant. I'm glad that he's getting a bigger opportunity here, and hopefully this will get a nice 20, 30 issue run, and we can see what he does with the character, taking him back to basics, and taking away a lot of the things that have kind of bogged the character down potentially. So I think it's exciting. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments section. I'm eager to hear what people thought of this new Iron Man comic. I think it's a promising start. Tell me what you think, people, and I'll talk to you later.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.